So to set the scene, remember, Odysseus has just slain all of the suitors. You might think that it's done. He succeeded. All he has to do is say hello to his wife and resume his old life. Not so fast. Not at all. He still has perhaps his most formidable foe to face, his wife Penelope, and his most important battle to win. If their attempt to reunite doesn't succeed, then everything is lost. None of the rest matters. Because in a sense, Odysseus is not Odysseus until he becomes again the husband of Penelope. So we've heard about Helen, we've heard about Clytemnestra. Which path will Penelope follow? We'll find out when we see her pull the best trick of the book, the trick without which all the other tricks fail. That's in book 23. For my money, the greatest chapter in the history of literature. Hey everybody, I'm Joe Sharkey, and this is Joe's Great Books. So if you're here from the short podcast, welcome. That's part of what the shorts are designed to do, to get you to this long form. Because for great work of literature like the Odyssey, you really have to give it some time. I'm really excited to talk about book 23 of the Odyssey, because for my money, that is the greatest chapter in the history of literature. And at the end of the podcast, you can tell me whether or not you agree. So let's follow along as Homer builds the tension. On the very first page of book 23, Eurycleia, the loyal wet nurse, the one who recognized his scar, who raised Telemachus, who says that her very bones belong to Odysseus. She rushes upstairs to Penelope to give her the good news. In line 5, wake up, dear child, she says. Penelope, come down, see with your own eyes what all these years you longed for. Odysseus is here. Oh, in the end, he came, and he has killed your suitors, killed them all, who made this house a bordel and ate his cattle and raised their hands against his son. You expect Penelope immediately to accept it, to cheer and to cry and to rush downstairs. Instead, this is how she responds. Dear nurse, the gods have touched you. They can put chaos into the clearest head or bring a lunatic down to earth. Good sense you always had. They've touched you. What is this mockery you wake me up to tell me, breaking in on my sweet spell of sleep? I had not dozed away so tranquilly since my lord went to war on that ill wind to Ilion or Troy. It's as if she's awakening from a 19-year-long bad dream, but she still thinks she's in it. Now, it's a long book, of course, so I'll be jumping around. Let's jump ahead to around line 63 when Penelope responds. Do not lose yourself in this rejoicing. Wait, you know how splendid that return would be for us, how dear to me, dear to his son and mine. But no, it is not possible. Your notion must be wrong. Some god has killed the suitors, a god sick of their arrogance and brutal malice. For they honored no one living, good or bad, whoever came their way. Blind young fools, they've tasted death for it. But the true person of Odysseus, he lost his home. He died far from Achaia. The old nurse sighed. How queer the way you talk. Here he is, large as life, by his own fire, and you deny he will ever get home. Child, you always were mistrustful. Penelope doesn't yield, not by a long shot. She explains. Nurse, though you have your wits about you, line 90, still it is hard not to be taken in by the immortals. Let us join my son, though, and see the dead and that strange one who has killed them. Now it gets fun. We get to listen to what she thinks, to her internal monologue. Yes, James Joyce, yes, modernist fans, they had internal monologues all the way back in 8th century BC. She turned then to descend the stair, her heart in tumult. Listen to what Homer tells us now. Had she better keep her distance and question him, her husband? Should she run up to him, take his hands, kiss him now? No. Crossing the door-sill, she sat down at once in firelight, against the nearest wall, across the room from Lord Odysseus. So, after all these years, she doesn't run to him. She doesn't act on impulse the way Helen did when she ran off with Paris, and then fell in with man after man. The last of them being her first again, Menelaus, who probably lost as much as he gained when he retrieved her. That home is still unwhole. The thing is, this kind of discretion is not unfamiliar. In fact, if you've been reading the Odyssey, it should remind you of someone. Because here's Odysseus as he washes ashore on the island of Phaeacia. meeting for the first time Nausicaa, the princess of the island. She and her young entourage are all young, with pretty braids, whereas Odysseus is as naked as Adam. He's actually covering himself with an olive branch, streaked with brine and starving. How should he behave? Homer tells us. This is back in Book 6, line 152. She faced him, waiting, and Odysseus came, debating inwardly what he should do, embrace this beauty's knees in supplication, or stand apart and, using honeyed speech, inquire the way to town and beg some clothing. In his swift reckoning, he thought it best to trust in words to please her and keep away. He might anger the girl, touching her knees. So he began, and let the soft words fall. Mistress, please, are you divine or mortal? What a smoothie. Back to Book 23, line 101. There, leaning against a pillar, sat the man and never lifted up his eyes, but only waited for what his wife would say when she had seen him. And she, for a long time, sat deathly still in wonderment, for sometimes as she gazed, she found him, yes, clearly, like her husband. But sometimes blood and rags were all she saw. So begins the quietest of all quiet moments, but also the most tense and intense and consequential. As I keep saying, the Odyssey culminates in Book 23. Here we have one more recognition scene. Not the last, but by far the most important. The last is between Odysseus and his father, Laertes, and that's hilarious, but another podcast. But this one, it's almost as important as the one between Odysseus and his dog. But now, Telemachus, comically. New man of the house, fresh off a victory in his very first fight, takes it upon himself to speak, and he scolds his mother. Line 110. Mother, cruel mother, do you feel nothing drawing yourself apart this way from father? Will you not sit with him and talk and question him? What other woman could remain so cold? Who shuns her lord, and he come back to her from wars and wandering after 20 years? Your heart is hard as flint and never changes. This is all very ironic because we'll find out that those are exactly the qualities that Penelope needs that Helen lacked. On the other hand, they're also the qualities that Clytemnestra had. Penelope uses them for a different purpose. Now, this moment is exquisite, and I just pray that Nolan gets it right. You've got the banquet hall. You've got Odysseus leaning up against one wall. I like to picture him on the ground. You've got Penelope. She walks in, takes her place across from him on the opposite wall. I like to imagine her just leaning up against the wall and letting gravity take her to the ground. She should look small there. At first, maybe frail, barely able to look at the man across the room, but she should also look fierce. Out of that jumble of womanhood, she's got an eye, one eye at least, up looking at Odysseus, an eye as fierce as Polyphemus's used to be. This has to be the quietest of all quiet moments. The tension has to be thick. It has to be as taut as that bow that the beggar strung a couple of books before. And above all, Nolan has to let it linger. Now, we've seen Penelope defer to Telemachus before. Why? Well, she's a good mother, and she wanted to help him become a man, perhaps belatedly. But here, and I like to think she doesn't even look at him when she speaks. She just looks at whoever that is on the other wall. And when she replies to her son, she's really talking to that stranger. What she says, in essence, is, Telemachus, the adults are speaking now. And Telemachus falls silent. Here's how Homer narrates it. I am stunned, child. I cannot speak to him. I cannot question him. I cannot keep my eyes upon his face. If really he is Odysseus, truly home, beyond all doubt, we too shall know each other better than you or anyone. There are secret signs we know, we too. So she casts doubt on the identity of the man across the room. She's provoking him, says she can't look at him, and she finishes by challenging him, asking him for his ID, for his password. She's also instructing him, I will be testing you now. Be ready. I'm going to whisper a riddle to you, and if you are truly my husband, you'll answer it. So, here's the great Odysseus, conqueror of Troy, returned king of Ithaca, old man of the manor, in this, as we all know, grotesquely patriarchal world, and yet no wife throwing herself into his arms. Here he is after 20 years of travel and battle and life risking. He's just killed 100 men for her. He saved her. He saved the kingdom. He saved their family. He's her husband. And she's asking him to pass a test? How will he respond? You should have guessed. A smile came now to the lips of the patient hero, Odysseus, who turned to Telemachus and said, Peace, let your mother test me at her leisure. Before long she will see me and know me best. Ha! Just like he said to Calypso when she warns him that leaving Ogygia would mean death instead of immortality, and that all manner of trouble lay between him and his wife, who, by the way, will be 20 years older than when he left her. Odysseus simply responds, Let the trial come. Odysseus left Calypso because he wanted life, and Penelope, with her patience and her cunning and her strength, is life. Now we realize these are two titans clashing. This is going to be the best battle yet. And what more could Odysseus want? Homer doesn't say so explicitly here, but I can tell. His heart laughs. So they agree to take a kind of hydration break, World Cup humor, because after all, Odysseus is still caked in the suitor's blood. When he comes back out, Athena lends a hand as she often does around line 175. Athena lent him beauty, head to foot. She made him taller and massive, too, with crisping hair and curls like petals of wild hyacinth, but all red golden. And then he takes the spot he was in before the timeout. He sat then in the same chair by the pillar, facing his wife, but on seeing him, Penelope apparently doesn't make a move. Strange woman, the immortals of Olympus made you hard, harder than any. Who else in the world would keep aloof as you do from your husband if he returned to her from years of trouble, cast on his own land in the 20th year? Nurse, make up a bed for me to sleep on. Her heart is iron in her breast. But Penelope is ready. She spoke to Odysseus now, saying, Strange man, if man you are, there is no pride on my part, nor scorn for you, not even wonder merely. I know so well how he appeared boarding the ship for Troy, but all the same, make up his bed for him, Eurycleia. Place it outside the bedchamber my lord built with his own hands. Pile the big bed with fleeces, rugs, and sheets of purest linen. And she turns to go. With this, Homer tells us, she tried him to the breaking point, and he turned on her in a flash, raging, Woman, by heaven, you've stung me now. Who dared to move my bed? No builder had the skill for that. Unless a god came down to turn the trick. No mortal in his best days could budge it with a crowbar. There is our pact and our pledge, our secret sign, built into that bed, my handiwork and no one else's. That's the way I would play it if I was, Matt Damon. She tricks him. She lays the trap. He walks right in it. And for the first time, all epic, a mortal has tricked Odysseus. Even the immortals have a hard time doing it, and he usually finds them out as he did Athena when he meets her on Ithacan shores. But here, he loses it. Woman, by heaven, you've stung me now. Who dared to move my bed? I think between that line 209, and 210, he must understand it. Now, it's not clear. I think he probably understands it there. He loses his temper. He loses the game. She beats him in that pair of lines. As I say, I like to think he recovers immediately as he thinks it through. He says, no builder had the skill for that. And I think for the rest of his talk, he's smiling. It becomes a love song between him and his wife. If Nolan has the guts and he has the choreography, he could say the rest of the lines as they dance together. So we've had our quiet moment, or you could say we're still in the thick of it. Now we get our analepsis, a flashback. An old trunk of olive grew like a pillar on the building plot. This is still Odysseus speaking. And I laid out our bedroom round that tree, lined up the stone walls, built the walls and roof, gave it a doorway and smooth-fitting doors. Then I lopped off the silvery leaves and branches, hewed and shaped that stump from the roots up into a bedpost, drilled it, let it serve as model for the rest. I planed them all, inlaid them all with silver, gold, and ivory, and stretched a bed between, a pliant web of oxhide thongs dyed crimson. There's our sign. I know no more. Could someone else's hand have sawn that trunk, dragged the frame away? He knows it couldn't have happened. If it's not clear, he built his bed, and then the bedroom, and then the palace, all around the trunk of this enormous olive tree. The bed frame is that trunk. It's rooted in the ground, so it's beautiful. The bed of the king and the queen is the center of the palace, is the center of the kingdom, and it is immobile. It cannot be moved any more than Troy's walls. The way I like to look at it is at the end, he's just essentially tipping his cap to her. You beat me. You got me. There's our sign. I was late to it, but I'm your husband. It's beautiful. She responds in the parallelism, the ping pong, the mirror image, back and forth. It happens at almost every moment in this book. Their secret, as she heard it told, her knees grew tremulous and weak. Her heart failed her. Remember, this is the iron heart, the one that allowed her to be patient, to be enduring, and to be loyal. Her heart here, only here, after it's okay to fail, fails her. With eyes brimming tears, she ran to him, throwing her arms around his neck, and kissed him, murmuring, "Do not rage at me, Odysseus. No one ever matched your caution. Think what difficulty the gods gave. They denied us life together in our prime and flowering years, kept us from crossing into age together. Forgive me. Don't be angry. I armed myself long ago against the frauds of men, impostors who might come, and all those many whose underhanded ways bring evil on. Helen of Argos, daughter of Zeus and Leda. Would she have joined the stranger, lain with him, if she had known her destiny? Known the Achaeans in arms would bring her back to her own country? Surely a goddess moved her to adultery, her blood unchilled by war and evil coming, the years, the desolation, ours too. But here and now, what sign could be so clear as this of our own bed? No other man has ever laid eyes on it. You make my stiff heart know that I am yours. At this point, Odysseus, you could say, is finally built back up into Odysseus. He's finally the man that he used to be, because he used to be Penelope's husband. If he's Penelope's husband, he's Telemachus's father. If he's Penelope's husband and Telemachus's father, he's the king of Ithaca. Now notice the subtlety, the mini lecture that Penelope gives him and us when she responds. For all those critics and a few translators who say that she didn't really have a battle to fight, well, she says, I armed myself long ago against the frauds of men, impostors who might come. She did fight a battle. No, it wasn't as exciting. No, it wasn't an adventure on the open seas. It was in the domestic world. Yes, it is a patriarchal world, but it was still a battle. It was still a hero's journey. And it's a divine effing comedy. That's why some people talk about her story as the Penelopeid, to go along with the Odyssey and the Telemachid. All three of them have to come together and meet at this one moment, or all three of them fail. All three journeys achieve that apex, that divine comedy, as one. She also refers to Helen. She's very charitable, but she reminds him, I could have been her. I could have been Clytemnestra. The reason I resisted you here is because I had to resist everyone else, including 100 suitors. I resisted you for 20 minutes like I resisted the world for 20 years. And with that last line, you make my stiff heart know that I am yours. She's pointing out her heart was made of iron. It needed to be in order for all of this to work. And so now we finally get to that poetic technique I've been telling you about for a while. That single epic simile that brings the entire epic together, that unites husband and wife after 20 years and 436 pages. Right after the line about her stiff heart, line 259 says, Now from his breast into his eyes the ache of longing mounted, and he wept at last, his dear wife, clear and faithful in his arms, longed for, as the sun-warmed earth is longed for by a swimmer, spent in rough water where his ship went down, under Poseidon's blows, gale winds and tons of sea. Few men can keep alive through a big surf to crawl clotted with brine, on kindly beaches in joy, knowing the abyss behind. And so she too rejoiced, her gaze upon her husband, her white arms round him pressed as though forever. Homer has been waiting for 400 pages to unload this feat of artistry on us. To my knowledge, it's the only epic simile that works in the way this one does, and he saved it all for the very culmination of his epic. Now remember what you learned about the pieces of a simile, the tenor and the vehicle. And see what happens here. We have the tenor, Odysseus. What don't we know? What is Homer trying to communicate to us? It's how much he longs for his wife. That's the tenor. How much does he long? Well, he takes us to the vehicle. He longs for her in the way that a man who has been shipwrecked longs for dry land. One thing he needs to survive. What could be a more appropriate simile than this? How many times has Odysseus been shipwrecked? And by the same logic, how many times has Penelope felt as if she was about to drown, perhaps in her sorrow, in her tears? But instead of coming back down to Odysseus after the vehicle, we come down to a secondary tenor. It's Penelope. And so she too rejoiced. This epic simile has a double tenor. The vehicle describes not just the way he feels about her, but identically the way she feels about him. It's gorgeous. It's exquisite. And it's the best moment I know of in the history of literature.